Thank you, Brenda Lee.
Where would we all be if I hadn't met her?
Yes, where would we all be if I hadn't met her? What great blessings. I'm really happy to be here this evening. As Brenda Lee said, my name is Liz Palmer. I want to give a special shout out to Carter right here. He's my assistant. He brought me up here today because I just had a big brain problem this morning and I was a little shaky driving. So I want to thank you, Carter, for helping me get here safe. So hopefully this evening you will not be disappointed and you're going to walk away with learning something new, learning something about your brain, learning about the incredible gift that we have called EHT and why EHT is going to take the world by storm as soon as everybody knows about it. And part of your jobs are to go out there and share what you have. So hopefully this evening you'll learn. We'll do about a 40-minute presentation, and then I will have a few Q&As if you have any specific questions that you might like to ask me. All right, so let's make sure that this works tonight. There we go. So the first thing I wanted to do was introduce to you the old me. So, oops, does this have a pointer on it? There we go. This is the old me. This was in 2009. When I was 19 years old, I had a bad car accident, and I rolled my car over 2.5 times without a seatbelt. Remember back in the 70s, you didn't wear seatbelts, and I had a right cerebellar injury. It wasn't until 35 years later it was diagnosed, however. I went for all those years not knowing what was wrong with me. And after I saw a functional neurologist and was blessed with his treatment, it really changed my life in all aspects, and that's me now. So the brain that powers everything about you. And tonight we're going to learn a little bit about it and a little bit, how do you know, is your brain affected? One of the things that Dr. Amen talks about when he interviews someone, he says sometimes he'll have to ask 6, 7, 8 times if they've had a brain injury, because they didn't know that when they were 2 years old they fell and they hit their head, or a tree bonked them on the head when they were 7. What's interesting about the brain is the immune system inside the brain doesn't know how to shut off itself. So let's talk about what drives the brain. And of course the brain runs everything. For without the brain I wouldn't be walking, talking, or doing anything, so it's going to be really important. Neuronal connections in the brain control how we process information and how we retain information. And we're going to give you a little sample of what a neuron looks like and how a neuron responds and acts. Now, neuronal connections can weaken over time, or they can become damaged. If anybody of you watched the Super Bowl this last weekend, you saw a damage right there on when the guy was pulled off for concussion and never allowed back on the ground for that. So let's look about what's happening in our culture today in the United States. And these are some pretty scary statistics. A lot of this information I just gained through research. I do attend, just this last weekend, I attended a 3-day workshop with chiropractors on concussion. It was a very fascinating weekend and learned a lot more about what's going on. So brain diseases as a whole are really on the rise. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. School-age children are being medicated at astonishing numbers like no time in the history of mankind. Brain injuries seem to be more apparent from sports, combat, and other issues on the rise. How many of you don't know somebody with a sleep issue? Sleep issues are a problem. Obesity, autoimmune conditions. Sometimes it's not whether you have an autoimmune condition, but which one are you going to have? We live in a more toxic world than ever before in the history of mankind. So this has a big thing to do with what's happening with our brains. So look at some of the statistics here. We have Alzheimer's, or they call it type 3 diabetes. I don't know if you've heard that before, because of the way it glycates in the brain and can affect the brain. That is one aspect of Alzheimer's. It is now the 6th leading cause of death. When Brenda Lee was a little girl, it wasn't even on the map. When I was a little girl, it was about the 25th leading cause of death. And now it is the 6th leading cause of death. Diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death now, which of course is very closely associated with Alzheimer's as well. Parkinson's is now the 14th leading cause of death. It was almost unheard of 25 years ago. ADD, ADHD, and seizure disorders. When I was growing up, I'd never heard of anybody with a seizure. And now I'm seeing children with seizure disorders. and general brain issues, again, on the big increase. This is a great chart that shows you the per capita deaths of neurological disorders, which includes Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and other brain disorders from people aged 55 to 74. Look at the only two countries that have risen in this time period are the USA and Denmark. Wow. Everything else is flat. Japan, it's gone down. Netherlands, New Zealand, where I'm going, Australia, all flat. So what is it about the United States that is causing this severe uprise in brain disorders? And what are we going to be able to do about it? If we want to be a brain warrior and have a happy life, we got to take care of this brain. This shows you where it's projected, where Alzheimer's is projected. Here we are around here, and by the year 2050, they say 13% of the population will have Alzheimer's. Now, the sad thing about Alzheimer's is that it is non-reversible. And it's not just the person that has the disease that is affected, it is the whole family. How many of you have someone you care about or know that has Alzheimer's? Is it not one of the roughest things that you could possibly go through? My mom had dementia before she passed away, and it was very, very difficult. So this is something to be concerned about. So look at some of our future generations. Here, new statistics, just a couple months ago. 1 out of every 45 children now are diagnosed with autism in this country. And it's just continuing to get worse and worse. ADD and ADHD drugs are being prescribed, and they're basically saying that Adderall, which is an ADD, ADHD, is basically crystal meth. And so we're giving our children the same drug that's on the streets of the American streets that are killing people, and we're giving it to our children. What's happened? How did this even happen? Children now as young as 1 year old are being put on psych meds for psychological disorders. How can you even tell if a 1 year old has a psychological disorder? But when you look it up, the statistics that these psych meds that have been approved for children, this is very frightening. And these are all altering to the brain chemistry. So this is kind of showing you the rise from the 1970s. When I grew up in the 70s, there was nobody really medicated as a child. And look what's happening now. These medications affect a child long-term into their adulthood and can be debilitating and cause a more rapid decline in the brain health as they grow into adults. Depression, it's one of the greatest killers of our time. Over 50 million Americans are affected with depression. Look at the increase, 400% increase since 1987. 23% of women now are put on antidepressants. It may be even more. And when a woman is put on an antidepressant, it doubles the risk for Alzheimer's as she grows older. Wow. Men, quadruples. Just read that anti-anxiety meds like Xanax, again, quadruples the chance of you having Alzheimer's in your older years. I kind of want to shake you up a little bit to show you what we have here. I mean, EHT is not a prescription for any of these. EHT is a general brain supplement, which I'm going to talk about why it keeps it healthy. But you better do it now, be a brain warrior now, before you become one of these statistics up here. This is a specific scan. It's called a SPECT scan. Now, these are not MRIs. They're not an X-ray. And what they're showing here is not holes in the brain, but they're showing oxygen flow. When there is not oxygen flowing to the brain, the neurons start to die. When the neurons start to die, they get tangled and they don't function properly. So this is somebody that's drinking 3 to 4 drinks a day, and it's showing this pretty holy brain. Basically, you're not getting enough oxygen flow to the brain. This is a heroin use on the brain. And this is somebody on methadone, which is supposed to be the heroin, help you get off of it. It's pretty hard for somebody like that to think straight, to act straight, to have a happy life, to not be depressed. Their brain is not functioning properly. This is a picture, the SPECT scan of somebody with PTSD. PTSD stands for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Women are diagnosed with PTSD more than men are now. I know that probably comes as a shock to many of you because we think of PTSD as a wartime disaster. But when anything happens to a child or adult that is shocking to the system, such as viewing a death or having an abusive situation, that can create PTSD. And again, your brain is not going to fire properly or function properly when it is like this. The increasing age, as we all are increasing our age, each and every one of us, we can't get away from that. It is the biggest risk or the biggest reason why we start to lose oxygen flow and we lose brain power. This can be halted, however. You can become a brain warrior and do a lot of things to help prevent any further damage and also reverse damage that you may see. So let's look at some of the issues that happened with an aging brain and see if you can put people into these little categories. The first thing that can happen, is mood changes. So you take the old man that lived across the street and he used to be a really nice guy, and then the older he gets, the grumpier he gets. Starts chasing you around, doesn't have any tolerance anymore, and gets really grumpy. These mood changes can be very obvious role in brain degeneration. If you go to an Alzheimer care center, a lot of moods there, because they cannot control their moods. Movement disorders. Movement disorders, when you see somebody walk, they should have a nice gait. They should move their arms back and forth like this. That's a healthy brain. When you see somebody walking like this, maybe they're not swinging their arms, or maybe they're dragging their foot, or maybe one foot sticks out. These are indications of a brain disorder. So when you watch, after I started to learn more about the brain, I would stop people in the grocery store and say, I noticed that you're walking a little strange. Let me look at your eyes here. I called myself a neuro nerd because I knew that all that time that I had been undiagnosed and that I had suffered so many problems. I thought my 50 pounds overweight was my problem with inability to control myself. But it wasn't. It was the right cerebellum where my injury was affected the right frontal lobe, which manages your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So I couldn't digest my food. So I'd eat dinner and then at 2 or 3 in the morning would throw up every night because my digestion would not work. Once I got my brain fixed, voila, my brain worked and then I was able to lose weight easily. So all those years, so that's why I'm such a passionate person about this subject, because I suffered for so long and I don't want other people to suffer as I did. All right, memory loss, that's kind of a no-brainer. We all know that people that are doing the memory loss, when you start to go into a room and you forget why you got there, or you forget where you left your car, or you forget how to drive home, these are not normal lapses. It is scary. Because of my brain injury, that happened to me. I was in downtown Portland, lived there 40 years, and I forgot which way to get home. That was a very scary moment for me. So I have a lot of catching up to do because of those many, many years that I didn't have my brain functioning very well. All right, so we also have neuronal loss, of course. I'm going to show you a little bit more about the neurons. You're born with a specific set of neurons. You can kind of retrain your brain, but you're not going to multiply and add more neurons. So you want to keep the neurons that you have as long as you can. Oxidative stress. When you think about oxidative stress, it's like a car that gets rusty, starts to break down, and our bodies start to oxidize, and they start to break down. I'm sure you've all heard the word antioxidant, and that's what an antioxidant does. Helps prevent oxidation of the cells. All right, hormonal loss. This is a big thing that starts to happen when you have the neurodegenerative complex of the brain. So let's take another example. Sorry, man, I'm going to use a man as an example. So here's a middle-aged guy who has lost a little bit of lust for life, and he's got a pot belly, and he's got the moobs to go with it. You know what moobs are, right? So man boobs, right? The moobs. I was in Las Vegas a couple months ago for a conference, and I walked by a clothing store, and they had a male mannequin with moobs. I had to take a picture of it. I couldn't believe it. I guess they're trying to model what men look like nowadays, many men. Moobs are not normal. That means that their testosterone is converting to estrogen. Also, their bottoms get a little bit, they're adding to their hips. That's what estrogen does when a man gets estrogen dominant. So then they're sitting around, then they're eating a lot of carbs, popcorn, sandwiches. You know, think about all the guys at the football watching it. And then they're not stimulating their brains. Maybe they're playing too many video games or they're watching too many movies. They go to work, they come home, and they don't stimulate their brains. They're not reading, they're not exercising. They are degenerating very, very rapidly. And these people have, as they grow older, have a lot of issues that come up with that degeneration. And you know, we don't want our men to turn into women. We want them to stay strong and be hormonally strong, right? Inflammation is also when the brain isn't functioning, the rest of the body becomes inflamed. And at the root of almost all disease is inflammation. So you want to keep inflammation at the lowest possible. And protein aggregation, what that means is that it's like little pickup sticks, and our blood streams can get filled with these pickup sticks, protein aggregation, and cause cardiovascular issues, heart attacks, etc. So you see how important an age-related neurodegenerative complex, what happens to our body, starts to kind of fall apart, right? I wanted to talk a little bit about our veterans because I'm very committed after I started to learn more about what our veterans go through. And I talk a little bit about PTSD and TBI. So I already talked about what PTSD is, post-traumatic stress disorder, and TBI is traumatic brain injury. So I'm going to use my girlfriend's my daughter's boyfriend as an example. He had 3 tours in Afghanistan. Do we have some veterans in the room here? Let's give the veterans a big hand. I've become so much more appreciative as I'm learning what they have been through. So on his 3 tours in Afghanistan, he was blown off of a wall and hit a wall, and he has hearing loss. So he had a TBI. And concussions from blast injuries are much more damaging than concussions from just hitting injury. So when a blast happens out in the field and that soldier is taking that blast that goes through his brain, it damages as it goes through, and then a slam. So they have really got a damaged brain. Now he witnessed 7 of his friends die that day. So he has PTSD, severe post-traumatic stress disorder from what happened. So the symptoms that he had were pretty bad flashbacks. He would wake up screaming, very scared. And he avoided any kind of conflict because that just meant that he had to deal with things. He was hypervigilant, so very, talk about squirrel, really paying attention, severe nightmares, and then he was re-experiencing these phenomenon that what happened. He also had very bad headaches, he was nausea, and he couldn't hold down a job because he had all this together. So this is what happens often in a medical doctor's office. They go in because they are going to get their PTSD treated or their TBI. Even though they're similar, some of their symptoms, you really can't treat one and then have the other one to be okay. So they may treat this TBI and it forces their frontal lobe down so low, underfires their frontal lobe, that they often commit suicide. And actually, a veteran dies in the United States every 80 minutes. Could it be that we are not treating our veterans properly? Are they not being diagnosed properly? Are they not being treated with the dignity that they deserve and being treated by an intelligent functional neurologist that knows what the heck they're doing? That's why, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this. So the other, by the way, Brendan, my daughter's boyfriend, EHT has totally changed his life. He now, he works full time. First time he had a job, no more nightmares. He still has ADD problems and he's still deaf in that ear, but he's so much better. So EHT is a lifesaver. The other group of men that I want to talk about are the NFL players. Anybody here see the movie Concussion yet? All right? You better hurry and go see it because it was taken off really fast. I don't even know if it's playing here anymore. And the NFL may have had something to do with that because they don't really want you to know what's going on. That was a great movie about the doctor who discovered CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which we're going to talk a little. I'm going to show you what a picture of CTE looks like. They just did some research on 100 deceased NFL players. The problem with CTE, it can't be diagnosed until you're gone. So in that movie, you remember the one football player that shot himself in the stomach to kill himself because he wanted to preserve his brain as best he could because he knew something wasn't right. And so he dedicated in his death his brain. So 90 out of the 87 players that were, out of the 91 players that were diagnosed, 87 of them were found to have CTE. They just announced that Frank Gifford, who passed away a few months ago, he had CTE. They just found another football player last month hung himself in prison after a violent act. He had CTE. Now they're saying O.J. Simpson. Would you be surprised that he would have CTE? Not at all. His behavior, etc. So this has become very scary. Now I don't want the NFL to stand for not for long because football is not going away. But don't you think it's about time that we start protecting our young men? Yeah. And the soccer league, they have said that the ages 11 and under can no longer have headers. But what about our 12-year-olds? What about our 18-year-olds, right? So parents unite, stand up. Don't let your kids, because every time that ball hits the brain, and I'm going to show you a picture of the brain, every time that ball hits the brain, it's a little mini concussion that can affect the brain. I don't think our children should, I think they should be an adult before they hit their heads. So, I really put that in the wrong place. All right, so how old is your brain and what has happened to your brain? We can't all look at our brains from there, but we can see that this brain here has degenerated and a lot of the neurons have died. And as the neurons have died and create little knots, they break down and all that's in between kind of shrinks. So this is an unhealthy or an aging brain, and this is a healthy brain. Okay, so here is Dr. Amen talking about your brain.
Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen. Today we're going to do something really important. I'm going to teach you one very simple concept that you will never forget, and that is your brain, the thing that runs your life. Your brain's involved in how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. It's the organ that gets you good grades, that gets you a job, that keeps you married. And when it works right, you work right. And when it's trouble, you don't. And what most people don't know is that your brain is soft, very soft, about the consistency of soft butter, toast, custard. And it's housed in a really hard skull that has many sharp bony ridges. So if you actually look inside the skull, there are ridges everywhere. This is an area called the middle cranial fossa, holds your temporal lobes, surrounded on all sides by sharp bones, including this one, called the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone, which in human skulls is as sharp as a knife. And your skull was not meant or evolved to hit soccer balls with your head or play tackle football without causing serious damage. So what I want to do is actually make something that's the exact same consistency of the brain. And so what we figured out is if you take 1.5 cups of potato flakes,
a potato head, right?
and 2 of sand, and mix that with 2.5 cups of hot water. Mix it up. It's just about 3 pounds. but is the exact same consistency of your brain. Can you see this? It's soft, really soft. And put it in the skull, easily damaged, right? Hit your head repeatedly. Hitting soccer balls, playing football, hockey, falling off of a horse. You can damage it, and when you damage it, you damage your life. So, brain is soft, skull is really hard. You want to protect it because when you do, you're protecting everything in your life.
Wasn't that great, Dr. Amen? So the good news is that Dr. Amen is a fan of EHT. And we're going to talk about why he does like EHT and why there is no other product like it. Okay, so what does our brain need to be healthy and happy? First thing that we need is oxygen. You know, we're only going to live a few minutes without oxygen. Our body uses 20% of the oxygen, but it only takes up 2% of our body. So the first thing that you're going to do to keep a healthy brain is you're going to breathe, and not just to here, but all the way down to here. Deep, long breaths, any kind of breathing exercises, and exercise. Exercise is the number one thing that you can do to keep your brain healthy, even if it's just cycling on a bike or going for a walk and doing deep breathing, keeping your brain healthy by oxygenating the brain. Now, if you have cold hands or feet, that means you have a cold brain. So it's really important, if you find yourself having cold hands and feet, you might want to consider supplementing with something that can help increase the oxygen flow to the brain. Also, hyperbaric chambers, if you have an injury, if you've had a brain injury, hyperbaric chambers are an excellent way to recover because it is oxygenating the brain, therefore healing the brain. The next thing our brain needs is it needs fuel, and this fuel comes in the form of glucose. Everything that we eat, from the potato chips to the kale, whatever it is we eat is going to turn into glucose. The difference is how fast does it turn into glucose. Highly refined carbs turn to glucose very fast. That means it gives you a big, fast rush. So that's why when you have a 3 o'clock Snickers bar, you're going to find a little rush after that because it's going right to the brain. But these kind of fast glucose also tank real fast, and they work your pancreas, which is producing insulin. So you don't want to eat a lot of refined carbohydrates if you want to have a healthy brain. Our brain needs fat. Our brain is 60% by volume of fat. So when somebody calls you a fathead, that is a very nice compliment because that means that's exactly what you are. So we want to make sure that we nourish our brain with good quality fats. The fat is over, it's no longer low fat anymore. You all know that, right? You know, and margarine, margarine is probably the worst food. If you have it in, I recommend throwing it out. But eating good quality fat. Hydration is, of course, very, very important. If you go into a senior home, you're going to notice that a lot of the nurses are making sure that the seniors are drinking water. They've lost they're not thirsty anymore because they've lost that. And so you have to make sure that they drink. Confusion in a senior can often be caused by lack of water. Now, water is really, it's the next gold, you know. I always drink filtered, clean water. A lot of, I don't know what they do in Tacoma, but where I live, they put fluoride in the water, which is highly toxic to the pituitary gland, and I don't recommend fluoride. If you want fluoride on your teeth, you can have it painted on, but I wouldn't drink it. So I always drink filtered, good, clean water on a regular basis, so find your good, clean water. And of course, stimulation is very important as well. And again, if you're sitting there watching TV or playing video games and you're not actively stimulating your brain, it's dying right before your very eyes. So games, reading, intellectual conversations, learning the piano, learning a new language, doing something that is keeping your brain active and moving and going all the time. Here's a few little fun facts about the brain. Neurons can travel up to 170 miles per hour. So when you have a thought, the synapses of that neuron up to 170 miles an hour. So when I ask you to wiggle your little toe, you can do it right away. So that's good. Our brain has amazing storage capacity, more than the Library of Congress. So our brain, you know, when they say that the average person is using 5 to 10%, we can't even imagine what it would be like to use 100% of your brain. Your brain is more active at night, and the more you dream, the higher your IQ is. So who's a big dreamer here? Look at all those high IQs. How many of you have been dreaming bigger since you've been taking EHT? Yes. Does that mean we're getting smarter? We hope so. We hope so. When you learn something new, the structure of your brain changes. So your brain, after you've learned something new, if you learn a new language, your brain is going to look different than it did before. It's an amazing, amazing organ. And half of our brains can be removed and our personalities don't change. I think that's kind of... So you've heard of the children that have had seizure disorders where they have half their brain removed. They can totally have a good, healthy life. There is no real separation, and the left does this and the right does that. It always works together. Although women do have a better interconnectedness than men, we're good at multitasking. Sorry, guys. Better at multitasking. Do you agree? Yeah. All right, so let's look at what a neuron looks like. So here's a neuron. Maybe you remember this from your biology, your chemistry when you were in school, but the nucleus of the neuron, and down the neuron, this is called the axon. And this is where the synapses goes, right down the axon. And here's what they call the postsynaptic cell. All right, so this is kind of what it looks like, little snakies. We have 100 billion neurons. There are as many neurons in the brain as there are stars in the Milky Way. So when you look up at the Milky Way on a clear night, just imagine that many neurons in your brain. An axon, they can be up to 3 inches long. It's really beyond my imagination how they can fit in billions of neurons and they're all up to 3 inches. How does that work? I don't know. Just an amazing, amazing machine in our brain. The number of ways information travels in the human brain is greater than the number of stars in the universe. So again, it's kind of unimaginable how complex and amazing our brain is. Oops. This is before I start that. Okay. So this is an animation of a neuron. And I'm going to talk about EHT in a few moments and why EHT is so different than any other product that's on the market. And this is a big reason why. So here's the picture of the neuron, and then we have the axon. So down the axon are little microtubules. They're little tubes that go all the way down the axon. And here's the tau proteins. Now these tau proteins are the building block of the microtubule. So you can imagine if this was a building and this was architecture, this is going to keep it very strong. You want strong axons, so your neurotransmissions, the synapses, is going to go right down that. And now this next one is another animation of showing how these neurons start to break down. And I think there's volume on this one, so. Here we go.
Circuitry enables communication within the brain. Healthy neurotransmission is important for the brain to function well. Alzheimer's disease disrupts this intricate interplay. By compromising the ability of neurons to communicate with one another, the disease over time destroys memory and thinking skills. Scientific research has revealed some of the brain changes that take place in Alzheimer's disease. Abnormal structures called beta amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles are classic biological hallmarks of the disease. Plaques form when...
So what you saw there was that little tangle that's also called a tau tangle, because those are tau proteins. Now where was the tau on the neuron? It was wrapped around that microtubule, right? All right, so a tau protein, it's a protein that binds to and regulates the assembly of the neuron, of that axon. So that's what it does. And when we have the neurofibrillary tangles, tau tangles, that's what it's made out of. CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, is a tau tangle disorder. Sometimes Alzheimer's, sometimes, not always, can be a tau tangle disorder. Major memory loss can be a tau tangle disorder. Now PP2A, when you watch the videos that Nerium puts out that are fantastic videos, They're going to talk about PP2A. And what is PP2A? PP2A is an enzyme that regulates that tau protein. So it helps helps the system in the microtubules. So they're like the skeleton of the cell wall, which gives it its form. So that's what PP2A is. PP2A is like the helper to the tau proteins. All right, so Sigmund Biosciences is the company, is the bioscience that discovered EHT. It is not with Princeton University, but it is the lab that is associated with Princeton University. So you're going to hear that, Princeton, and the Sigmund Biosciences. So when they were searching for issues around skin cells, they realized the skin and the brain are very closely associated. So with their discoveries of skin, they were looking for something that reduces chronic inflammation, because inflammation in the skin makes us look puffy and degenerates our skin quickly. But chronic inflammation is at the root of almost all disease. Oxidative stress, so it's stressing our skin out, aging our skin, and DNA damage. So as they were looking for that, they discovered that whatever was helping the skin also had the opportunity to help the brain cells. And so that's how they kind of accidentally discovered this and put it together. So our products, including our skin products and our brain products, are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and they modulate cell signaling or help restore and repair DNA damage. Here's a little signal of the EHT, creating the PP2A and helping those, the tau proteins inside the neuronal networking there. All right? So here, this is now, hopefully, when you look at this picture, you're going to see it a little more clearly. Did that help kind of seeing the visual of how this works? So here's a stable microtubule. There's a neuron stable. This is the synapses here, and this is all the tau proteins inside that, covered by little EHTs. They're happily, and this one forgot to take their EHT, and those tau proteins started to break that down, so it's broken, and then it gets tangled. So how did they discover it, and what is EHT? Why is EHT different than any other brain product? Now, if you go to Whole Foods or go to a health food store and you start to look at brain products, they almost have sections now. Has anybody really researched and done brain products in the past? All right, most brain products that are out there, first of all, are very supportive for the brain structure and the fat, so they're going to have essential fatty acids, and they're going to do that, which I highly recommend. But other brain products are going to help with neurotransmission, so they're going to help with dopamine and serotonin and all these neurotransmitters, and going to help with acetylcholine. So these are going to be helping with the brain, but there is nothing on the market, no amount of products that you're going to find of anything that helps to restore that neuronal networking. They all work at different facets, which you may want to add some of those products if you have issues, but there is nothing out there like EHT. So they knew in their research that heavy coffee drinkers, 5 to 7 cups of coffee a day, they rarely have Alzheimer's or dementia. Like, what? How does that happen? How many of you know somebody like that? They're an old codger and they've been drinking coffee all their life. So coffee is neuroprotective. But they was wondering, what is it in coffee that is neuroprotective? Now, if you drink 5 to 7 cups of coffee a day, your brain may be okay, but the rest of your tissues, it's very highly acidic and can be really damaging to the stomach lining, etc. So they, after 20 years of research, they discovered that there was a molecule inside the green coffee bean, and they were able to develop a patent out of this coffee extract, and they were awarded a global patent for this molecule. So is EHT coffee? No. Is EHT green coffee? No. It's a molecule that's been extracted from the green coffee bean. So here's the EHT, and even though this is nice roasted coffee, they take it from the green, and it's not Starbucks coffee, obviously. But this is the polyphenol, this is the molecule called eoconosyl 5-hydroxytryptamide. It's much easier if you say EHT. Now, is our EHT just this molecule? No. We've added some other ingredients along with this to make a synergistic supplement that is beyond anything that you've ever experienced yet. So this is kind of how they do it. They slice it up. I'm sure it doesn't look like that. They're just giving us a little visual. They pull out that molecule and they add it with some other ingredients. So let's go over what some of those other ingredients are. So we know the eoconosyl 5-hydroxytryptamide is the first ingredient. Second ingredient is huperzine A. Now, if you did brain research product, you probably have heard of huperzine A. Huperzine A is very commonly found in other brain products. What it does, it actually prevents the breakdown of acetylcholine in the brain. So acetylcholine is responsible for your memory, and it also helps with sleep. So when they added huperzine A to the eoconosyl, the EHT, it helps restore REM sleep. So it gives you that good quality sleep, and that's why you're having better dreams. How many of you that are on EHT already are sleeping better? All right, so more than half the room. This is one of the reasons why. The next ingredient is vitamin D. Now, we all live north of the equator, so all of us are low on vitamin D. I highly recommend each and every one of you, if you don't know what your vitamin D level is, when you go to the doctor next time, or just you can go and get the lab on your own. You don't even have to go to a doctor, and check your vitamin D level. Your vitamin D level should be 70 to 90. Most people that I've tested are below 10 in the Northwest. The Northwest, especially Seattle, is really known for multiple sclerosis. It's kind of the MS capital of the world. They don't see MS south of the border, south of the equator. Or close to the equator because of the amount of sun. So vitamin D is an essential supplement. Our product contains 2,000 IUs. So if you're taking 1 EHT a day, you're getting 2,000 international units, which is a recommended daily allowance. If you're taking 2, you're getting 4,000. I have an autoimmune disorder, so I take about 10,000. I add extra vitamin D. My vitamin D level, I was happy to report, is 70 now. And vitamin D is really a hormone. That's a long story, but it's not a vitamin at all. It's a hormone, but vitamin D is really important. Vitamin B2 and B12, we use the methylcobalamin form of B12, which is a much better form. It methylates through the liver, so it dissipates and is utilized by the liver much better. So we've got really good B12 in there. We've got magnesium and selenium, really good for muscle and nerve conduction. Any of you notice that when you take EHT that your recovery from exercise is better? Oh yeah, okay. So I hadn't skied in 35 years, and I went skiing, and I knew the next day that I would not be able to get out of bed. Because, you know, I had used muscles that I had no soreness at all. And I'm like, isn't the EHT really amazing? I haven't actually been sore from exercising. I think it has something to do with this along with the EHT. And also alpha lipoic acid is in there. It's an antioxidant, and again, oxidation is going to be taking the skin and the body down, so it's really important to have an antioxidant there. This is just a caveat. The titanium dioxide is part of the coating on the pill. When you look at the pill, it's going to be really slippery and coated with talc and titanium dioxide. Now, if you ask Dr. Google, is talc good for you? They're going to say, well, no, talc can be toxic. Well, first of all, it's talc in the powder form that you inhale. So it's totally inert, but they have that coating on our EHT to keep oxygen out of the product. We don't want any oxygen to break it down. So if you don't want titanium dioxide in talc, which is totally inert, but some people rinse it off and then they can crush it. Maybe for a child, so you just rinse it off, it comes right off, okay? So the synergistic combination of all these ingredients are producing this fantastic product called EHT. If you want to be a true brain warrior and use EHT as a springboard to have a really healthy brain, here's a few supplements that I recommend for a general supplementation. Omega-3 fatty acids, in this concussion workshop that I did this weekend, they said anybody that has had a concussion should be taking 15 grams of essential fatty acids, a 4-to-1, for 6 months. 15 grams, that's a lot. You can get professional strength, it's about 5 professional strength. But they did some research and showed a tremendous difference in recovery from concussion when you're supplementing with your omega-3 fatty acids. So it's important. Vinpocetine is an herb that really increases your blood flow. So if you have cold hands and cold feet, vinpocetine is really good. I use Neuro O2, which is a product that I used to sell with my brain company that helps with my ongoing brain recovery. Probiotics, taking something good for the gut. The more research, I don't know if any of you have read the book called Brain Maker or The Grain, it's by Dr. Perlmutter, The Grain Brain. Our soils have been so depleted in our culture that we're not getting the proper probiotics in our gut. So taking a good probiotic is really important. You know, the brain gut, there's a definite connection. B vitamins, phosphatidylserine. As you grow older, you don't break down your B vitamins from your food very well. So I add a B complex to my vitamins, and it's good recommendation after you're 60 years old. And of course, EHT. And we know that Dr. Amen takes all these, and he takes EHT on top of it. So here's a good diet for a good, healthy brain. Healthy fats and vegetables. So by healthy fats, we're talking olive oil. I don't know if you heard the bad news about olive oil. Did anybody read the article? That 80% of the olive oil that's on the shelves is not olive oil. It's mixed with other oils. So you want to be careful where you get your olive oil. Because it can be mixed with other oils. And there are some, Whole Foods has a couple that are real true, but you make sure you buy extra virgin olive oil. That's the real stuff. Coconut oil, avocado, nuts and seeds. These are all really good fats that you can eat, and raw vegetables. You're going to see that fruits aren't here on the bottom. Fruits are good as an adjunct, but building a diet with good high quality grass-fed wild protein and vegetables, then fruits, and then of course at the top of the list are refined carbohydrates. Remember a few years ago this list was upside down, right? They wanted us to eat pasta and breads, and those are stealing your minerals from your body. So try to cut down on the pastas and breads, etc. I've been gluten-free for many years, which made a big difference in my recovery as well. Now this is the American USD food pyramid. Some of you laugh, but you know what's really sad? I went to Detroit this year. My son had a job in Detroit, and I'm the traveling grandma. I get to go when he doesn't have a babysitter. He says, you want to fly off to Detroit? Yes, I'll come. So I would have never gone to Detroit. Amazing city, how they're rebuilding. Detroit was almost gone a few years ago. But some of the people that live there, the only place they have to shop is at 7-Eleven, you know, when these stores are taken down. And these are the kind of foods that they're choosing from to eat. This is a totally debilitating, you'll be dead in your grave or a diabetic before too long if you eat this way. This is just a fascinating study that shows when you're eating improperly, you're eating too many refined carbohydrates, sweets, drinking sodas, etc., it shrinks your brain. This was done in the Journal of Neurology, 266 healthy adults. The higher your fasting glucose is, the quicker your brain is shrinking. That's one of the reasons why they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, because we're seeing this is happening, it's shrinking the brain. All right, so this is just more food ideas, eating your wild caught fish. Farm-raised fish is not only not good for you, it's bad for you. They feed the fish soy, which is not a natural food for the fish, and it's pretty toxic. Dark green veggies, avocado. I think I try to eat an avocado every day. Here's the good news. Now, even though you saw the picture of the wine drinker, little red wine is fine. Red wine is high in resveratrol, which comes from grapes. It's a very good antioxidant. Blueberries. I had an event the other day, and I said, bring a good, healthy brain food, and several people bought blueberries because Dr. Google's going to tell you blueberries are the #1 food for your brain. And avoiding your inflammatory foods, avoiding the trans fats, your dairy, gluten, sugar, etc., and grains. If you want a good, healthy brain, this is the good, healthy diet. All right, so this next slide, I added a few extra slides, so that's why I forgot what was there. Every day now on Facebook and in other social media, we are seeing stories, great stories of EHT. Anybody else see that? And there's some that are very impressive. We've heard some with small children that are getting better grades. They're concentrating better. I have a friend, I gave him 3 boxes of EHT. He has severe autism, major changes. He started to get a sense of humor. He stopped stimming. His vocabulary is growing, and his mother says he's much more calm every day. I know Chris was going to come up and share a story. So Chris, if you want to come up. So this next video, this picture while Chris is coming up, this is a woman who has Alzheimer's. So she suffers severe memory loss. And when asked to draw a woman's face, this is the first face she drew with no hair, and her hand was very unstable. This is 30 days later with EHT. I think any doctor would notice the remarkable difference in that. I just wanted to show you that one. So Chris, come on up.
Okay. Hi. I started taking EHT back in, I think, June. I'm very scattered, typically, very, very scattered. After taking it for like 3 days, my husband actually asked me if he could have some. And I said I didn't buy any for him. And he's like, well, you're actually completing sentences, and you haven't done that in 30 years. So I was like, okay. So then, and my son, one more thing, and then I'm going. My youngest son started taking it, who has been suffering from anxiety and depression for a while. And this has made a huge difference. He doesn't have to take medicine anymore, which he really didn't care for taking that. He got himself off that, but it's made a huge difference in him. He bought a car. He golfs all the time. He wasn't doing any of that. He wasn't even leaving our house, so it's made a big difference.
Oh, thank you very much. So as you can tell by her emotions, this is very emotional, what's happening with people, that it's changing their lives, because without a good functioning brain, life can be really difficult. And in today's culture, it can be even more difficult than ever before, with everything's coming at us so fast. We're on information overload. It's hard to relax, rest our brain. It's hard to sleep. And EHT is making it possible for many people to do these things. We are starting to get some incredible attention. This is an ad. This I don't know. I know I said I haven't dated in 7 years. I would not date that. But we're in Muscle and Fitness magazine as a recovery product. And of course, our product has been approved. It is 100% safe product that has been shown to be drug-free. Even Lance Armstrong could use it okay, right? And we are now having, there's about 11 NFL football players that are past NFL football players that are now joining the ranks in Nerium. They're doing it because of the love of their family and the love of the buddies that they know have been damaged in football. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with the NFL and with our sports today, but we got to do something. I was listening to an interesting podcast the other day on NASCAR. The NASCAR drivers have helmets that are made for them that have a layer, so when they get a hit, it takes up a lot of the reverberation and it really protects their brains. A NFL football helmet is made with one solid piece. When they get hit, that rubbery, buttery brain is concussed. Why aren't our football players wearing the helmets that are NASCAR drivers? Yeah. That's a question that we want to ask, right? And I don't know if you saw it on the news today. The NFL is refusing to be part of the CTE study now. It was just announced today. They are trying to run and hide from this problem, but it's not going to go away because mothers won't let it go away, will we? We are not going to let our children play ball when we know that they could have that. One of my brand partners went to the opening of the movie Concussion with several NFL players. And she said when she turned around, they were all gone in the middle of the movie. They couldn't watch it because they know their livelihood is football. And if they recognize what's happening to their brain and their life is going to be shortened, that's a really hard thing to take. So it's very sad. So this is how EHT comes, and we love it because, first of all, it's protected in its oxygen rich, no oxygen, protective container, and it comes in a 30-day supply. So you know, some months have 31, so you make sure you have your extra box. And then just like Chris's husband, if you don't have enough, you might find it starts to disappear. And it comes 30 tablets. You can take more if you feel like you need more. You're nodding your head, you like taking more? Okay, so tell me, Denise, why?
Between PTSD and lots of traumatic brain injury, I have a lot of catching up to do. And I started off taking 2 a day, and I was doing pretty good for a while, but then I started getting massive migraines. So I backed off a little bit, and I found out that 1.5 was a really, really good
Number for you?
number for me.
Okay.
And it's really, really made a difference.
Wonderful. As again I said, more women unfortunately are diagnosed with PTSD than men. And so we're really happy that you're taking good care of your brain. So this is what it's going to do for you. Now I want to make it clear, very clear, that all the diseases, disorders, issues, EHT is not a cure. EHT is not FDA regulated and is not a not a tablet for any kind of diagnosis. I really wanted to enlighten you about what's happening to our brains, and EHT has been proven to be supportive to your brain. So just make that delineation real clear, right? I'm not telling you that it's for any of these disorders, I'm just sharing with you. So, but this is what we can say that Nerium EHT does. It supports and protects the neuronal networking. Now, do you all know what neuronal networking is now? We've all been fully educated. It increases focus and mental alertness. Now, I can tell you when I get up in front of a room and I speak now, I don't have those little bit of stutters. Occasionally I'll stutter and try to remember, but now it just flows. It's amazing. So it does really help with your focus. Improves memory and recall, better cognition, function, and overall brain health. One of the things that people are doing is that they're playing games on and then taking a snapshot and then 30 days later. Since we don't have wonderful before and after photos, we can start doing some of these concentration games, take a copy of our score, 30 days later, test ourselves and see how we're doing. It boosts your body's immune system. Why does it do that? The vitamin D, the alpha lipoic acid, the selenium, it is helping our immune system. It fortifies and strengthens your natural brain functions, and it enhances the body's energy stores. One of the things that people say is that it doesn't give me a jittery, excited, it gives me a sustained long-term energy. I wake up more excited about life, put my feet on the ground. I went to this seminar a couple weeks ago, and this gentleman, he used to be an attorney. And he said when he woke up every morning, he would sit on the edge of his bed and go, oh, shit. And one day he realized he didn't want to start his morning with, oh, shit, every morning. And now he gets up every morning and gets on and says, oh, yeah. Now, I want all of you to be able to get up and say, oh, yeah, because you feel well rested. You're excited for the day. You're excited to share this incredible gift that we all have. Because there's people that are walking down the halls of Safeways that are wobbling that need you. There's your family members that maybe you've been afraid to talk to that need you. You need to make sure that you open your mouth and share this incredible gift called EHT. It's 100% guaranteed. If somebody tries it, they don't like it, they can always get their money back. But it may be the day that their life changes for the better. They may have more enjoyment. They may have less headaches. They may have more energy and just have an overall love of life. So look at the price of this. Now, if this were to be a prescription, you would put a little zero after that right there. With what we're seeing, just a sleep product, just how much people are getting benefits of sleep, this product would be more than $55 a month. When you start to do a little bit of research, if you find something with huperzine and selenium and alpha lipoic acid and vitamin D, you try to put all those together, you're going to pay more than $55. And that doesn't include the EHT. So this is a great price. Always feel confident as a preferred customer, this is a great price. Retail, $75. Better price is you buy 2 at a time. You can skip every month, buy 2 one month, and then the next month buy your skincare if you're all by yourself, and then get it for only $50. But if you want an even better price than that, our Nerium products do qualify for your 3-year free. So if you're not all getting your EHT for free, you're not sharing enough, right? You're not finding those people wobbling down the Safeway aisles enough. So I would want you to consider this to be your first goal, to make sure that you're getting your product absolutely free. So as a preferred customer, you get a free website, and you can tell people to buy from your website, and then you get your 3 products free each and every month. I can't end this evening without going over this amazing skincare products that Nerium has. You know, my story with Nerium, you've kind of seen my brain story, but my girlfriend called me. I was on the island of Hawaii contemplating what my next move was. As a middle-aged woman, I wanted to leave my job because I wasn't in alignment with the values of my company. Anybody else know what that feels like? Yeah. And she said, hey, I have this product that'll make you look younger. And I said, is it safe? Because I had been poisoned before with bad skincare. It had filled with estrogen. It was a mess. And she said, yes. And I said, fine, how much is it? And she said, $500. I said, fine, sign me up. That's about as much as I asked, because I trusted her very much. That was the day, one of the days that my life changed forever. It did a pivot. It started to change. Another day was when I met that incredible woman out there. My life pivoted in a wonderful way. And now 4 years later, December 21st was my anniversary date. My life has completely turned around. I've been able to travel. And as Brenda Lee said, 40 years ago, I left for Europe. May 31st, I left for Europe 4 months by myself, hitchhiking across Europe. And because of Nerium, I get to experience that again. So on Tuesday, I'm leaving for a dream trip, going to Australia, New Zealand. Half my suitcase is packed with Optimera and EHT and magazines. Because this is an international business that I can grow internationally. I'm going to be meeting people from all around the world that I get to give the gift of EHT as I go and enjoy my life, have fun, and grow my business at the same time. So whether you're a brand partner or not, if this is something that you want to do, how many of you want to have a job that helps people? Okay, almost all of us here. It's a human desire. If you can't find something, a job that you feel that you're helping somebody else, life can feel kind of empty inside. So if you're looking for more of that connection of how can I help somebody's life, we have got some incredible gifts right here. Something to help their brain and something to help them look better. And when you look in the mirror and you look better, guess what you do when you go out in the world? You act better. You're smiling. And you're being a better energy producer, and you're being a better human being because you're feeling better about yourself. So Nerium is one big happy family of looking good, feeling good, being happy. And of course, we've got the Live Happy wall that's coming up on the 19th of March. I'm sure, where's yours going to be?
We have one at Capitol Mall.
Capitol Mall, right. And Olympia.
That's going to be at Point Defiance Park.
Oh, fantastic. So these are happy walls. So Live Happy is Jeff Olson's baby for 3 years. March 20th is the official day of International Happiness, but we're having our walls on Saturday instead of Sunday. And they're just big 10-foot orange walls, and you come and you write on a card and say what you're going to do to make the world a better place and a better, happier place. And for every card that goes up, $1 is donated to Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's a great day to wear an orange t-shirt, to be happy, and to have happy acts. Last year we were on a lot of the Good Morning America. Jeff was interviewed on Good Morning America, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of news agencies this year that are going to pick that up. So we really are truly a business about helping people from all aspects of life. So that is the end of my presentation, and I hope that you all are convinced that being a brain warrior is the best thing that you can do for yourself and the world. Take good care of yourself, drink good water, and remember to take your EHT. So thank you very much.